It seems like it would be enough that last night was the full moon, the blood moon, and a lunar eclipse, or that today's Pi Day, or that it's Purim, or that it's the beginning of St. Patrick's Day weekend. You might think, what on earth could we possibly add? Well, how about an evening of great flash fiction? And that's exactly what we have for you tonight. Welcome everyone to the FBOMB Global Flash Fiction Zoom, which was originally created by the wonderful Paul Beckman. I'm your host, Francine Witte, and I'm zooming to you from New York City in a fake bookstore. Tonight's readers are Kathryn Kulpa, Pedro Ponce, Jenniefer Maloney, Dave Gregory, Nora Nadjarian, Mario Aliberto III, Sarah Freligh, and Jamie Poissant. So I invite you to relax, settle in, and enjoy an evening of great flash fiction. I like to, and please, everyone, feel free to use the chat to, communicate with each other and give a little feedback to your readers, etc. And I'll be putting links in the chat as well. Okay. So I'm going to. I always like to start with a like a warm up piece or two. So in honor of last night's eclipse, so this is about a solar eclipse, so you'll forgive me, you'll beg your indulgence here. This is called Slide of Moon. Slowly across the sun's yellow flower face, and we can't help but gather ourselves wisps of ghostly dandelion spores. We are clustered, our necks tilting away from the flat earth of our everyday. We cover our eyes with special glasses, dare to peek through pinhole viewers, and we briefly remember we are little more than bits on a galaxy sash. We are flyaway and passing, flicked off the moment we die. But here we are, today for this one single held breath, with songbirds going silent, and we huddle together back into that single organism we were maybe meant to be, brought together in the day dark as the moon closes off the sun like some giant held up thumb. The eclipse and us going total, and we aren't scared, not even for a second. And then the whole thing passes back to normal, the moon going back to its part of the sky, and we scatter back apart like some unseen wish breath was blowing on us. We go back to our separate lives, the fear of death eclipsed again, like always. We forget the fact that one day, billions of eons from now, the sun will be hidden again, fade like a dying flower, blacked out forever and gone. And also, I mentioned today was Pi Day, so I'd like to read something in honor of that. It is called Pi. My mama blows in, storm that she is, and says she wants her some blueberry pie. I say, girl, you haven't talked to me in ages. How are you going to come at me like that? She says, I'm still the mama in this drama, and you, dear girl, ain't shit. This kind of talk was so much of my childhood, you have no idea. She says if it weren't for her drunken, whoring ways, I never would have even happened. I'm just what she got for liking sex and liking it where and whenever. Couldn't point to my daddy for $1,000,000,000,000,000. Further, she tells me she was all tart perfume and miniskirt and sashaying her ass into the nearest bar and doing it in the men's room right above the toilet, which is where I was probably made. Then she asks, you gonna get me that pie or what? Like a nice little domestic drama to start us off. Okay, so now I am going to introduce our readers, beginning with Kathryn Kulpa. Kathryn Kulpa lives in Massachusetts, where Massachusetts meets Rhode Island, and writes where poetry meets prose. And that's a good bio. She is the Flash editor for Cleaver magazine and has work published or forthcoming in Crow and Cross Keys, Flash Frog, Had, Milk Candy Review, Moon City Review, and Winsome. Her Flash collection, A Map of Lost Places, is newly released from Goldline Press. Kathryn Kulpa.
Thanks, Francine. That's the first thank you, not the ending thank you. I'm going to read a few micros to start, and then I'm going to finish with a piece from my current chapbook, A Map of Lost Places, which is out from Goldline Press. They're going to be at AWP. I'm not, but you'll get to hear a story from it today anyway. So, I'm going to start with a 50-word story called Springs Eternal. Chiquito died in May. We dug a gerbil-sized hole by the garden. I poured in sunflower seeds because they were his favorite, because Egyptian kings were buried with figs and honey for the afterlife. Now Chiquito would live forever too. That August, a yellow riot of sunflowers reached for the sky. And this is also a micro, but a little bit more sinister. And this is called In the Candy Aisle at Walmart number 1728, Jubilee Plaza, Arkansas. Because the movie snacks are so overpriced, we go to Walmart first. And because you can never make up your mind ever, I say you get the candy, I'll get the tickets and meet you at the movie. And I'm by the register, half scanning my phone when cars backfire, firecrackers bang, champagne corks pop, and still I don't know. I'm pushed forward in a wave of people, squeezed in a sea of breath and bodies. And I can't tell if I'm walking or being walked. Can't move my hand to check my phone. Can't text to see, are you okay? Can't call mom. Can't turn my head. Can't go back to find you. The crowd swells and puffs like when you open the cardboard tube and poppin' fresh dough comes bulging out and you can never get that dough back in again. I have to believe the crowd will carry me to the door. Have to believe the door is there somewhere. And all I can hear are screams, and all I can do is hope, hope, hope they aren't yours. And this is a new piece called They Would Have Been Perfect for Each Other If. He hadn't been divorced, 3 kids, full custody, ex-wife in the state mental hospital, weekday breakfasts of burnt Eggos and heated over spaghetti O's, any food with an O in it, any food he didn't have to do more to than open a can, open a box. Someone should have taught him to cook. A mother, a sister, his ex, but no one did, only Stofers and Howard Johnsons. His pleading smile to the woman at the dry cleaners whose hair was so high and French twisted, promising him a world of bobby pins and manual dexterity. Marry me, he pleaded. I need you, and wonder of wonders. She said yes. 36 years old and her friends whipping wedding bouquets at her like guided missiles. He was not the best catch, but still a catch. She would collar him, keep his collars clean. No more ring around the collar, but a ring on her finger. And they had it planned for June. Her dress fittings, the deal on flowers from Mr. Tony's in the same plaza as the dry cleaners. And then he met the woman in the diner with the green plaid coat, hair exploding out of an overfilled barrette. And if she hadn't been, not yet divorced, married but not married, stuck in limbo, like the limbo of the Catholic Church, a land of gray sameness, splotched with unbaptized babies and cavemen, a land of return to separation support demands, of a long-haul trucker absentee husband who knew all the slippery ways of can't be found. 4 kids, no child support, unanswered letters, canceled connections, addressee not found, no money to fix the dryer, clothesline strung from the shower rod to the bathroom mirror, and diapers, diapers, diapers. And one day she cracked, thought, I will just walk away, ride a bus to nowhere, and let them track him down. Let him wipe up vomit and drool for a change. And on her way to the bus depot, she stopped to get a coffee and met the chain-smoking, red-haired man in the diner. If not for his first wife, if not for his second soon-to-be wife, if not for her husband, someday or never to be ex-husband, if not for promises made and unmade, if not for promises kept, promises unkept, promises unkempt, they could have made a family, could have kept a child, could have been the Brady Bunch, the more than Brady Bunch, could have been eight is enough, could have been something that was enough. This is a scab you will never not pick, or not enough. And I'm going to read one more, which is from my book. And this is called The Day the Women Walked Away from Alabama. No one saw them go. No one knew who left first, if they all picked up at once and left together, only that they were all gone. From Miss Blossom May Simcock, aged 99 years and 364 days, to tiny T. Marie Jones, born just before midnight the day before. The nursing homes were nearly emptied. Mr. Hiram Quill at Country Gardens was the first reporter. No one had come in to bring him breakfast, and not a single one of those lazy girls was anywhere to be found, no matter how many times he rang his buzzer. Mr. Quill decided to complain to Miss Blossom, whose 100th birthday party was scheduled for today. People from the TV were coming, and there would be cake. Mr. Quill did love cake. But Miss Blossom was gone, only her walker and slippers left behind. Every nurse was gone from halls and desks. Every puppy dog scrub-wearing girl pushing carts down the hall. Every white-haired old lady gone from beds and wheelchairs. No one in the breakfast nook, no one at the craft table. No one left at all, except Mr. Quill and a few dozen bewildered old men like him, ringing buzzers that brought no girls. No girls at all, Mr. Quill told a harried policeman who came that morning. But the policeman, Officer Buncombe, had problems of his own. His wife, gone. His 2-year-old daughter, gone with her. Schools couldn't open, not enough teachers. Hospitals at half staff. Boy babies crying for their mothers. Bob Templeton, sweat running down his jowls as he tried to serve every man in his diner, said it had to be the Russians. Aliens, said Mr. Donald Dunwoody, father, until lately, of 3 girls. Mr. Dunwoody's teal and gold tie, hastily knotted, looked bilious against his pink shirt. But who could blame him for that? Everybody knew the man was colorblind and relied on his wife to dress him. Wouldn't surprise me a bit, Bob Templeton said, looking up at the grease-spattered ceiling. His mind was already ticking over all the shifts to fill, wondering who might be pressed into waiting tables in a pinch. The short-order cook, who spoke no English? The high school boy, who washed dishes from within a happy cloud of marijuana? The state legislature met as usual, but found nothing to legislate. Authorities were on the case, but found no leads. Someone reported seeing the women in Georgia, in Tennessee, but those reports proved false. Up north, other folks said, New York. Then the picture started going around. The empty Fashion Week runway, red carpet littered with puddled dresses and high-heeled shoes, as if whoever wore them had kicked them off, as if they knew they wouldn't be needing them anymore. If girls as vain as models could be tempted into leaving designer clothes behind, the minister said, it was Satan himself doing the tempting. Officer Buncombe stayed on the job. Not everyone did. Calls kept coming in. Brawls, shootings, car crashes. And the other calls. My daughter, my wife, my grandmother, my aunt. Routine. He didn't bother to log them all anymore, but the little boys' voices still bothered him. My mama's gone. Where's your daddy, son? Don't got one? Female, missing, 10 years old, 14, 22 and engaged, 35, 3 sons and a bun in the oven, too young to toddle, too old to walk. But they'd walked away somehow. Officer Buncombe thought about what the preacher said about it being a judgment. He didn't doubt that some men deserved that judgment. He knew all he needed to know about the evil men do in the world. But his Amanda, he loved her, had never done her a lick of harm. Even let her keep her name when they got married, joked that he wouldn't put another buncombe into this world. He'd even changed diapers, not just once, 3 or 4 times at least. It seemed like the bars were the only things open these days, but he stayed out of them, took long walks at night, watching the horizon, as if they might all come walking back, sorry for the ruckus they'd caused, ready to be forgiven. Never before had the stars seemed so bright, so far away. Thank you.
That was beautiful, gorgeous, Kathryn. And I will just tell you, your reading was only enhanced by that beautiful cat behind you. Which I'm telling you, if you look at the chat, everyone has fallen in love with your cat. Beautiful, and matches your hair and your walls. It's amazing.
Of course.
Almost like a prop. Beautiful.
This is Liam, yes, and he says hello, and we're trying to
Gorgeous.
redeem the color orange after it being besmirched.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we can't lose the color orange for sure. Well, thank you so much for being with us here at the FBOMB tonight, Kathryn. Kathryn Kulpa, and we'll look for your book. Okay. Okay. Next, we're going to hear from Pedro Ponce. He's the author of The Devil and the Dairy Princess, winner of the Don Belton Fiction Prize. His fiction has appeared recently in FBOMB, Black Lily, and Flash Boulevard. A Map of the Underground, a portfolio of new flash fiction, is part of the Open Journal of Arts and Letters 2024 Masters Series. Pedro Ponce.
Thank you, Francine. I'm going to read some excerpts from the portfolio, and it's called Map of the Underground. It's basically a series of flash fiction stories that talk about the underground, both literal and also metaphorical. And the first piece I'm going to read, I thought I knew the whole story of Oedipus, but I forgot that before he found out about his family history, he was supposed to come to Thebes in order to cure a plague. So this is based on that. This is called Oedipus at the Mall of America. We have prayed to the angels who assure us there is no monster. We have prayed with our pastors who have determined there is no plague. We expectorate into our palms and coats, not because we have to, but because we can. We have filed the appropriate reports with law enforcement who warn us that you are not from around these parts. We could have guessed as much from your wardrobe, which we admit is made from good material. Our grandmothers would approve. Our great-grandmothers would have swept and churned in garments of a similar pleat. You've seen better days, when you could see, of course. We appreciate your concern, but humbly suggest you tend to yourself before helping others. We have our own medicine developed by a doctor who cured blindness thousands of years ago. We'd refer you, but you would need to put on some pants. We promise to pray even for you. It is all we know and more than enough. We learned to pray as soon as our mouths formed words. We can still feel our mothers probing between our lips, a hum emerging from deep inside to meet milky skin. We love our mothers. The next piece I'm going to read is called Origin Story. For the sake of the children, the parents fought underground. Beneath the dishwasher's hum, the combatants regarded each other from deepening trenches in the basement's earthen floor. The insulation muffled the cadence of gunfire and explosives. The movement of troops filtered through hardwood floors as the click of marbles or the crackle of Christmas tinsel. The field of battle was spacious enough to accommodate surprise attacks, but sufficiently compact for regular reconnaissance. The children noticed nothing through détente and escalation, avoiding the stiff patches of carpet under their feet, the astringent smell of freshly cleaned surfaces. They played well together and apart, watching for shapes to emerge from the backlit curtains overhead. Continuing a little bit with Greek mythology, this is a piece called Orpheus. And you say the radioactive fallout will get us way before all the plastic. I read things, all kinds of things. Fallout is no joke. There's the stuff we've come to expect, lesions, mutations, but that's just in the third dimension. No one ever talks about the fourth. It's easy to blame the experts. What did they know? They thought they could survive in their basements, barricaded on one side by the bones of Cotton Mather and on the other by the Great American Songbook. They made love by the light of burning isotopes. How were they to know what the wind carried with it from all those test sites? I'm sure you've seen the footage. Men in uniform and dark glasses smiling proudly in front of a mushroom cloud after it's named after its corporate sponsor, Cathexis, Aqualux, International Cheesecloth. Of course, that's the footage you're supposed to see. I've seen the footage you're not supposed to see. Do you know what a single flake of oxidized uranium does to a mouse in a maze? They call it alignment paralysis. They want you to call it something else. The mouse is only trying to remember. With space and time blasted open, you could be anywhere. You could live a lifetime as someone else and never know it. Under the spores of the cloud, you're not speaking gibberish. You're surrounded by people who nod and wait to hear more. When you look at them a second or two longer than usual, they look back because they know and are trying to remember too. You can't blame someone for that. At least I like to think so. I'm going to plug a couple things, but I also want to keep things moving. The next to last thing I want to plug, this piece is forthcoming in the Bath Flash Fiction Anthology 2024. I know there's been a delay, but it's coming. I'm looking forward to it. This piece is called Orson Welles. Be prepared, be prepared, admonished the evening news. Know the signs. Shoes scuffled urgently on the pavement below. Dogs up and down the block howled into the purpling sky. Close enough, I thought. I opened the emergency kit. The case folded out into a shelter for one. Stenciled inside were instructions for determining the most deserving member in your group. I could afford to ignore these as I sifted through the packets spilling onto the basement floor. There was a first aid kit and a deck of cards. The cards were smaller than the usual deck and backed with green camouflage. There were dry rations and rations that could be activated with potable water 7 days each. I nibbled on the miniature chocolates in the pop-up plastic jack-o'-lantern. I assembled the Christmas tree and put a 4th of July sparkler where the star should be. I started the needlepoint commemorating national history. My stitches grew clumsy in the glare of the spent sparkler. The rampant eagle rising in the east seemed to yawn in its inevitable trajectory to the west. The purple outside had turned to black. I put batteries into the emergency torch and rolled it next to the Christmas tree. For my safety and to preserve battery life, the light was only as bright as Orson Welles' cigar as he narrated the latest. The water heater and washing machine grew solid in the dim orange glow. Pages of newsprint piled on the floor, wrinkled dramatically and dusted with ash. The National Guard had been summoned. The president would address the nation at any moment. A bow tie hung from the clothesline overhead. Orson Welles sipped from a steel tumbler. The ice in his drink chimed, amplified by the ziggurat of his microphone. It was almost time to play solitaire. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Pedro. That was wonderful. Pedro Ponce. Okay, before I move on, I want to give a shout out to some of the people in the Zoom room here, as I always like to do, because it's really nice that you took the time out to join us tonight. We have Zvi Sessling, Claudia Montpere, Bill Merkley, Tracy Adams, Dorn Steffler, Joyce Cole, Maggie Mays, Ann Anthony, Elizabeth Sertouche, Calliope Pelios, Jackie Doyle, Ilan Marnahama, Bobby Valencia, Kelly Shalaki, I believe, Jeff Harvey, Patricia Bedard, Maleva Anastasia Dew, Dawn Miller, and Cole Beauchamp. And if I missed you, just put a note in the chat and I'll give you a shout out a little bit later. But I really appreciate that you're here. And really, I have to say, we do have sort of a great lineup today, so I'm not all that surprised. Okay, next, let's move on to Jenniefer Maloney. Jenniefer Maloney writes poetry and fiction. Find her work in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, Synchronicity Magazine, Litro Magazine, and other publications. She's the author of the Evidence of Fire, Poems and Stories from Claire Songbirds Publishing 2023, and Don't Let God Know You Are Singing Before Your Quiet Eyes Publishing Don't Let God Know You Are Singing, and it's Before Your Quiet Eyes Publishing 2024. Jenniefer is a grateful parent, partner, and very lucky friend, and we're lucky to have her with us tonight. Jenniefer Maloney.
Thank you, Francine. I'm excited to be here. I hope you guys will forgive me. I had a cold and I'm coughing, so I'm going to do my best. This is a little longer than your usual flash, but it is called Jerry's Last Problem. The doctor is cleaning up Jerry's mess, as usual. With a grunt, he bends, grabs the dead boy beneath the armpits, and drags him toward the stairs. While the doctor works, Jerry hides in an attic bedroom of their mind, eyes closed, fingers in his ears. Pretending the doctor doesn't really exist, dancing around what he might actually be, is long-standing practice for Jerry. He prefers to think of him as my practical side, the part of himself that gets things done. Denial is Jerry's only really well-developed muscle. In life, the dead boy had a dancer's grace too, gliding between tables at Jimmy's Bar and Grill like Baryshnikov. A spin here, a high step there, sure-footed and laughing, even while balancing a tray of bottles and half-empty glasses over his head. Jerry tipped. The dead boy smiled. Jerry tipped more. Eventually, Jerry mentioned that he lived just down the street and tucked a wad of cash in the front pocket of the dead boy's jeans, letting his hand linger there. "Bring something with you," he said. And the dead boy grinned a dimpled, winning grin, his dark hair falling over his forehead. Like Baryshnikov. Now, Baryshnikov is just a side of beef. Tall, muscular, at least 180 pounds, the literal definition of dead weight. Jerry and the doctor are 65 years old, and neither one of them has seen the inside of a gym since college, despite Jerry's ex-husband's snarky nagging. The doctor wrestles the dead boy's body down 3 flights of stairs, panting, sweating, stopping every couple minutes to catch his breath. Much more of this, and the doctor thinks he and Jerry might have a heart attack and die too, right there alongside Jerry's dead friend. He chuckles, picturing their 50-ish housekeeper letting herself in Monday morning to find their bodies sprawled on the stairs, small packets of pills, powder, rocks, and weed sprinkled over the scene like confetti. Well, it had been a party, after all. All the way down the stairs, the dead boy's feet beat out a useless SOS. Dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. Dirty old tennies banging against the risers, sliding around the newel posts. "No rescue for you," the doctor snickers. "That ship has sailed. Ha!" The doctor knows that it's important to be able to laugh at oneself. He doesn't understand why other people make such a big deal out of it, though. He doesn't find it difficult. He's a funny guy. He makes himself laugh all the time. He finally reaches the first floor. Their poor heart, already dealing with all the cocaine Jerry smoked tonight, pounding hard, and more worryingly, sort of stopping, lurching, and stopping again. Fucking Jerry and his addictions, drugs and boys. He's going to end up killing them both, and the doctor does not want to die. The doctor enjoys life. They have money, a respectable reputation which the doctor manages to maintain through a combination of insinuation, intimidation, and generous payoffs, despite Jerry's continued stupidity with junior staff. A club membership, at which there are employed both a fine masseuse and a really stellar chef, a subscription to the local Philharmonic, and yearly weeks-long vacations to a summer house in Maine, often accompanied by friends, some with benefits. Speaking of houses, the doctor can't help thinking that none of this would have happened if they'd bought the property outside of town they'd looked at after the divorce. Gorgeous, huge, private. They could have afforded it, could have rented office space and commuted, but oh no, Jerry needed his historic house in the city, needed to be close to the culture and community. Bull. What Jerry needed was to be close to his drug dealer and potential hookups, Baryshnikovs. Jerry is an idiot, and the doctor is done with it. In the kitchen, the doctor straightens, rests for a moment, contemplates. Out the sliding glass door to the backyard and around the side of the house to the car. The dead boy will fit in the trunk, he thinks. Should he wrap him in something? A sheet, some garbage bags? The doctor sighs. God damn Jerry. What a pain in the ass. This is the absolute last time, he promises himself. No more dirty work. Things are going to change. The doctor is reaching for the dead boy's collar when the dead boy opens his eyes, kind of gasps, coughs, speaks. What? 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 Help! Help me! I can't. From the farthest reaches of their shared consciousness, Jerry opens his eyes too. Oh my God, he's alive, he whispers. Call an ambulance, he's alive. No, the doctor snarls. He slams the door of the bedroom in their mind. Jerry screams as he locks it, but the doctor is finished dancing with Jerry, finished with answering his frantic SOSs, finished especially with paying off Baryshnikovs. He's going to buy a house in the country. He needs his money. The doctor solves Jerry's last problem with enthusiasm and efficiency. He feels like a new man already. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was a beautiful story, beautifully read. Really.
I didn't know that it was beautiful.
Oh, it was. It was. And you did a great job reading, even with your cold. So, no need to worry about that. You did great. Okay, next. Thank you, Jennifer Maloney. Next, we're going to hear from Dave Gregory. Dave Gregory spent nearly 2 decades working on cruise ships and sailing around the world before he returned to Canada in 2017. He has been an associate editor for Exposition Review since 2018 and is currently their fiction co-editor. In January of this year, Dave founded the online short story journal, Doric Literary, and we will look for that, Dave. Dave Gregory.
Right. Wow. Thank you very much. Great reading so far. I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to start with a little micro. This was published in Every Writer quite a while ago. The story was inspired by my dad, actually. Tomato pulp makes the wound look worse. I never owned a bow and arrow, but learned archery from my friend, Stanley Llewellyn. We were both 11. Using mud, we painted a target on an old tree in Llewellyn's backyard. It was too easy, so we tried shooting into a gap no wider than my thumb in a stone wall taller than we were. When I finally got one through, it raced across the neighbor's garden, pierced a ripe tomato, and embedded in the left knee of 73-year-old Reggie Smothers, who was pruning his hedge. Tomato pulp made the wound look worse. Although true, my defense, that I wasn't aiming at anything, failed to absolve me, and poor old Smothers limped for the rest of his life. And then the other one is called When the Train Whistle Blows. Now this, the last story took place in the 40s. This one takes place in 1929. I don't know if you can see that, but on this little train bridge here, so that's two towers there going over a river. And this is actually my grandmother's story. I wasn't there, obviously, but this is my fictional recreation of what happened when my grandmother used to tell me this story. So when the train whistle blows, Gwen is 120 feet above the swift-flowing 12-mile creek when the train whistle blows. It rattles her bones and echoes across the valley. She turns. The steam engine has crossed Glenridge Avenue and is headed her way. The single-track bridge is 800 feet long and rests on two supporting piers. She's closer to the Glenridge side, but can't fathom running toward the train. She grabs her older brother's hand and yanks him in the opposite direction. He resists. It's nothing. Don't panic. You'll get us both killed. She screams and tugs harder. He doesn't budge. Gwen wonders how fast she can run on railway ties without tripping. She considers jumping into the shallow creek. It would be suicide, but so is standing still. Don't worry, I know what to do, Harry says. It's the summer of 1929. Gwen and Harry cross this bridge every day at noon to pick fruit at Horton's farm. The shortcut shaves 35 minutes off their travel time each way. Harry has memorized the passenger train timetables, but this must be an unscheduled freight run. He also knows the trick of putting an ear to the rail and listening for vibrations, but as an invincible 12-year-old, hasn't bothered. Every sibling contributes to the family finances, but Gwen's 5 sisters fear the bridge, so they work closer to home. They sew, teach, wash dishes, and do laundry without the slightest threat of dismemberment or annihilation. Dampness builds in Gwen's armpits, behind her knees, and between her toes. It'll pass right over us if we lie on the tracks. It's the most ridiculous thing Gwen has ever heard. The whistle sounds again, longer this time. The locomotive is on the bridge. She can feel the vibration in her knees, in her teeth. Just get down. Harry makes his sister kneel, then flattens her, face first. She covers her head with her hands. That won't protect you. It only raises your profile. Keep your hands at your side. Gwen obeys. Her eyes water. I'll be in front. The train will roll over me first. You'll see how safe it is, he adds. It's fun. A bead of water rolls down Gwen's nose and hangs for a moment, then falls. She loses sight of the droplet before it splashes into the creek. Her body shakes. Noise builds. Rumbling, whirring, and grinding. A screech of gears, metal on metal. She expects to hear Harry scream and crunch. She imagines the train impacting her skull, snapping her neck. Her whole body is wet. Everything is so loud, she assumes the train is on top of her, but is afraid to look. Far below, shadows form a pattern of alternating light and dark stripes caused by sunlight streaming between closely spaced railway ties. She spots her own darkened form, then her brother's. The long, shaded streak of the massive train hungrily consumes the last few slats of light in front of him. Gwen raises her eyes and sees Harry on his back, feet facing the train. She's an arm's length from his wavy brown locks, elbows tucked neatly within the rails. His hands are beneath his head, as though he's lazing on a grassy hill, watching clouds pass. His head moves. Perhaps he's nodded and winked at the engineer. Gwen ducks in terror as shadow covers her brother. Rails dip and currents shift as she goes under. She smells oil. Fluids exit her body and rain upon the valley. She trembles, cries, and prays. The rumble of boxcars is endless. Wood pulsates beneath her and numbs her body as the wheels swoosh with demonic rhythm. Gwen fears a low-hanging section of undercarriage will strike and crumple her. Wanting to scream, she disgorges her lunch instead. Wind carries it to the western riverbank. When the song of steel loses tempo, Gwen knows the train is slowing. She registers a human voice mid-sentence, saying something about the locomotive reaching the station. It's her brother. She wonders how long he's been speaking. Might be late for work if it stops on top of us. Summoning courage, Gwen raises her head. Her brother is still lounging on the tracks. He unfolds one arm until two fingertips graze the bottom of the train and are blackened. He rubs away thick dirt or dark oil with his thumb before retucking the hand beneath his head. He sings and tells the world that he's been working on the railroad. Harry reaches the second verse before Gwen sees a glimmer of sunlight marking the end of the train. It illuminates Harry's boots, his face, and then liberates her with its warmth. The music fades, her brother's song ends. Her legs shake when he helps her up. You're soaking wet, girl. I told you there was nothing to be afraid of. Although she adores her brother, Gwen is infuriated by his fearlessness. That same fearlessness leads Harry to enlist with the Royal Air Force in 1940 and takes him overseas for training. For the rest of her life, well into her 90s, Gwen pictures him, wounded in the Battle of Britain, parachuting over the English Channel as his plane breaks apart. Hands behind his head, he sings about the white cliffs of Dover. Drifting downward, he reaches for England, notices blood on his fingertips, and wipes it with his thumb. Harry keeps singing until he splashes into the frigid water and bleeds to death. Thank you.
Well, you had us on the edge of our seats, Dave. That was wonderful and wonderfully read. You got some really nice comments in the chat. Check them out. Dave Gregory, wonderful. So we've heard some great stories, gorgeous language, great readings, a beautiful cat. I mean, what more can you ask for? Well, we have 4 more readers, so we're only halfway through, so just sit back and enjoy. Next, we're going to hear from Nora Nadjarian. She's a poet and a writer from Cyprus. Her work was included in Europa 28, Comma Press, and in National Flash Fiction Day anthologies in the UK. Her short fiction has also appeared in Freligh, Milk Candy Review, Ghost Parachute, Fractured Lit Matchbook, and chosen for Wiggly's Top 50 Very Short Fictions of 2022, selected by Kathy Fish. Nora Nadjarian.
Thank you, Francine. I hope you can all see me and hear me. It is almost 1 a.m. where I am. So Dave's act is going to be a bit hard to follow. I'm going to read a few short pieces which have been published recently, and I'll give you some links for my work later on in the chat. And also I've had a book of prose poetry published recently by Broken Sleep Books in the UK, and I will also be posting that in the chat. So this is the spot where the moonlight sequence C says, "There's something I want to tell you." I walk on, pretending not to hear, fling a pebble at her face, then another, as far as they'll go. The sea says, "Listen to me, please." I want to tell her, shut your waves up and leave me alone. I just came here to light a cigarette and moon breathe, not to talk about the past. Sunburned tourists sit on Van Gogh chairs, rest their elbows on checked tablecloths. I almost choke on the ebb of my memories and their flow. The sea says, "I didn't mean it." The sea says, "I'm sorry," repeatedly. A long time ago returns, not as the calm moon, but as a fierce sun. The sequence now on fire. The skin-peeled, salt-stung, sunscreen-polished tourists on their sunbeds, eyes shut under their umbrellas. Nobody saw anything. Not a single person noticed anything wrong with the world here on the spot where two girls stood. Two best friends dressed in matching bikinis, with matching ponytails and chipped nail varnish toes, wade in, giggling. There's a whole sea we can hide in, and the sea asks, "Where are your parents?" And the sea asks, "Where?" The sea asks, "Are?" The sea asks, "Your." The Vanishing Hitchhiker. In my mother's dining room, our toddler is on all fours doing his inquisitive act. He finds a grain of rice on the carpet, pops it in his mouth, and scrunches his face in disgust. He is an old man already. My father sneezes. We find the pills scattered everywhere, parts of them or whole ones. At the end of every meal, he lines up his multicolored pills, sweet pink, baby blue, angel white, on a napkin just before filling his mouth with them, like M&Ms. He gulps them down with a glass of water, then smiles at us like a child. The clock is breathless with all the running, and I'm listening hard. When somebody's dying, it's always much later than we think, and from a distance, we're all eavesdroppers. My mother overhears my sister talking to my father's doctor on the phone. She asks, "What was all that about?" My sister says nothing, her face bubbling like soup with the lie and the knowledge. The validity of lie detectors is yet to be proven. The truth is, she meant to say, time is running out, but the afterlife is time too. My husband writes, "I miss you, baby," from a conference hall in another continent. The meaning of baby ping-pongs in my head. I make a mental note of other things leading up to an incomprehensible event like death. My mother's unsharpened knives and the crisscross patterns on the chopping board, the dog sniffing with understanding, moonlight coming back night after night, my father's face as if he's about to make a grave decision, though he hasn't said much in a month, his head framed by the mauve wall behind him and that cheap reproduction of an impressionist painting, lilies, Monet, Manet, does it matter? Earlier today, he asked for baklava. My mother's eyes turned syrupy for a second. I remember one of his birthdays when she made a whole mountain of sticky, gooey baklava. Such gifts, such laughter. We paid no attention, baby. We were too young. Around the dining table decades ago, my father recounted an urban legend, which made us shriek with horror, same way we did with laughter when he tickled us. The vanishing hitchhiker was picked up by a driver and then simply disappeared. Two truths and a lie. There's a box inside a box inside a box, and we're playing pass the parcel. It's that kind of party, one which Mum insisted on planning, like we're 3 and not 13. There's a prize in the last box, tiny and slightly crinkled with all the squeezing and handling. It's my turn. I'll bet this is some crap bottle of shampoo or cheap perfume, I say. High-pitched laughs all around me while I take out the doll, who is not quite a Barbie or Cindy, but a pint-sized Lady Gaga. It's unmistakably her. Bleached hair in a bun and dark eyebrows, red lace bralette, matching knickers and over-the-knee boots. But there's something not quite Gaga in her posture, her smallness. I push a bright red button on her back, and a tinny, tired voice monotones. The truth is my life is a lie. The truth is my life is so small. The truth is my life is not what it... And she stops. And everybody stops. The party freezes, and we all look at each other as if for the first time. What a great party, I lie. And we all know that we girls still need to learn a lesson. The day will come when we too will find ourselves inside a box, being passed round, waiting to be unwrapped, ready to tell the world our 2 truths and 1 lie. Queen. We were having breakfast and the spoon was dripping with honey, and my husband asked, "Can you think of any insect other than the bee which makes something for us to eat?" I thought of the uselessness of the fly, the ugliness of the mosquito, the terrifying industry of the ant. I said simply, no, but felt that my secret was out. It's been some time now I've been thinking bees. Ever since we lost the baby, our girl, my husband and I talk to each other less and less. I take out my notebook and make untidy, haphazard notes. The queen bee is the mother of most, if not all, of the bees in the beehive. She can produce over 3,000 eggs in a single day at the peak of her laying, more than her own body weight in eggs. Pheromone. Mostly we give each other a look that hurts, an empty glance, a tense smile, as if we shouldn't smile, not after this, or a slight touch and a recoil from it. Or perhaps there's another woman. The silence of my mouth has the smell of milk gone bad. I spit breakfast into the sink as soon as it's gone, sick with the way my stomach churns, as if she's still inside, the way my body oozes sweat and my armpits stick to my sides when I remember. Pheromone is gold, and the queen on her sexual throne oozes with it till it dies. Before the pregnancy, my husband and I used to make love every night. In the bee colony, life is repeated over and over. My body metamorphoses, caught in a spasm. Thick, warm liquid runs down my legs. I give birth. I give birth. A soft, comforting song fills my head, a collective hum. The pollen tickles my nostrils and throat. My eyelashes sometimes catch it, and its smell is so pungent that I'm revived as if breathing pure oxygen. My baby girl's hair was bees. They buzzed around her head. They were everywhere, hovering around her face, making sunshine, lightly touching her below the almost formed temple and cheeks, kissing her with their busy legs, making honey from her skin. They never stung her, no, they never hurt her, and she welcomed them the way I do, especially at night, when they enter my thoughts and swarm. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nora. It was stunning, really. I'm humbled by the fact that this is your 1 a.m. energy, by the way. So I think you just knocked us all out, really. So thank you so much, Nora Nadjarian, and thank you really for staying up with us. Okay, next we're going to hear from Mario Aliberti III. He is the author of All the Dead We Have Yet to Bury, Chestnut Review, a collection of flash fiction. His short fiction has appeared in Smoke Blown Quarterly, Fractured Lit, The Pinch, and other fine publications. He lives in Tampa Bay with his wife and daughters, and yet the dog still runs the house. Find him online at marioaliberti3.com. Mario Aliberti III.
Thank you, Francine. And that dog's running around here somewhere. So if you hear some barking, we'll just say it's going to add to the ambiance tonight because that dog really is in charge. But yeah, I just had my flash fiction collection come out, All the Dead We Have Yet to Bury. Maybe you've seen this cover online somewhere. It's gotten a pretty good response, and I know there's some people here who support it. So thank you. I mean, it's great to actually have some work out there and people are reading it, and I'm still humbled by that every day that people want to read words that we put down. So tonight I got 2 stories for us. The first story was published with Pete Smoke Journal, and this one is Mr. Pulaski Always Said. Mr. Pulaski always said, "You couldn't win a spelling bee against your shoe. And if your dog ate your homework, it'd die of starvation. And grades are in, and here I thought I was all out of F's to give." And in response, we all said, "Mr. Pulaski was a dick." We, the bathroom vaping kids, the detention kids, the summer school kids, the 2.3 GPA kids, the our parents haven't checked our homework since elementary school kids, the no curfew on a school night kids, the can you give us extra credit so we can graduate kids, and Mr. Pulaski, who confiscated our vapes, who monitored our detentions, who proctored our summer schools, who accepted our extra credit, our curmudgeon English teacher, Mr. Pulaski, who watched us navigate the rickety steps onto the graduation stage in our robes, shake the limp, clammy hand of the principal, hold the ceremonial diploma for a picture, scan the crowd for family we knew weren't coming, listen as the principal recited bland congratulations, stumble past the line of administrators with plastered on smiles, shuffle off the stage not knowing where to go, except to where he, Mr. Pulaski, waited for us, wolf whistling with 2 saliva-soaked fingers, punching us each on the arm hard enough to bruise, shouting louder than the cheering families of the honor roll kids, "You did it! You fucking idiots did it!" So my wife's a school teacher, and that one is to all the school teachers, and I'm sure we have some teachers in this audience. We have to. Those ones that touch at least one kid every year. That one is for all of you. You mean something to some kid out there. You always do. The next one was published with Milk Candy Review just 2 weeks ago. And this one is called Something Out of a Horror Movie. In the horror movie she calls life, the bad girl gets cast as a camp counselor because she's hot. She knows she's hot. And every horror movie needs an antagonist to the virginal final girl, at least until the monster shows up. Also, Camp Silver Springs is desperate for counselors, lenient with job experience, and it's like getting paid to party. So although she never agreed to it, the newspapers will forever refer to her as the bad girl, because no one remembers anyone's name besides the monsters in a horror movie. Not the jocks, not the nerds, not even the final girls. One night, drinking warm beer around a fire pit with the other camp counselors, the bad girl listens to the final girl once again complain they should follow the rules, be better role models to the campers. The bad girl tells the final girl to fuck off, that she hopes the campers are breaking curfew, telling ghost stories, toilet papering cabins, or sharing sloppy first kisses, because a little trouble's good for the little dorks. Following rules is bullshit. It's all bullshit. And no matter what, the world's going to try to kill you anyway. That's the only thing for certain. So do what the fuck makes you happy with the little time you have. During a game of Never Have I Ever, the bad girl finishes off a 6-pack of Miller Lite on her own by taking a big gulp when someone says, "Never have I ever kissed a girl, smoked a joint, had a threesome, had a black eye, buried a mother, got a tattoo, lived out of a car, ate food out of the trash, got a second tattoo, tried acid, crowd surfed in a mosh pit, stole a car, broke someone's nose, been in handcuffs, been in love." The final girl didn't drink to any of those, but it's the last one, never having been in love, that makes the bad girl soften a bit. The same way she feels about the campers, she now feels about the final girl, wanting her to live a little, wants her to break some rules, do something stupid, something she might regret, to make mistakes. Have no regrets, because you never know when your time is up. Millions of stars, and the bad girl takes a stroll to the lake with a girl following, a girl being led, a girl chosen, the final girl, because she needs this. They both do. Refracted moonlight on lake water, knees digging into the sand, straddling the final girl, because the bad girl doesn't fuck on her back. She wants the world to see her, young and beautiful, and her last thoughts are a mix of pleasure and philosophy. How life is short. How life must be short, even to stars millions of years old. How at the end of their life, even stars must wish for just a little more time. The bad girl doesn't get a chance to scream when the machete-wielding monster steps out of the woods, sneaks up on her, and swings for her neck. It is inevitable. Everyone has their role to play. The bad girl's role is to warn viewers to stay away from sex and drugs. And in this movie, this life, her death serves as the inciting incident for the final girl to enter her badass monster killer era, but only after watching all her friends meet gory deaths. Except the thing no one ever talks about, not the director, not the critics, not the audience, the real reason the monster kills the bad girl first is not because she drinks or gets high or likes to fuck. No, it's because if the monster doesn't take her out first, she'll run him over with the camp bus, stab his eyes out with the sticks they use to roast s'mores, take his machete and cut his fucking head off. The bad girl would save everybody. And what would the newspapers name her then? Thank you.
Oh, wow. Fantastic, Mario. And we do have several teachers in the audience, me being one of them. So thank you. That was wonderful reading. Again, these readings have been just stunning, and the words and the energy, and we're still not done. So we'll move on. And thank you again, Mario Aliberto III. Thank you for being with us tonight. Next, we're going to hear from Sarah Freligh. I'm sorry. Sarah Freligh is the author of 7 books, including Sad Math, Hereafter, A Brief Natural History of Women and Other Emergencies, forthcoming from Moon City Press. And I think that Sarah said that'll be available at AWP. It's just out, it's just coming out. Among her awards are poetry fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Salt and Stall Foundation. Sarah Freligh.
Thank you, Francine. Thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm going to read 3 stories from my ongoing work in progress that I've been calling the Rita stories because they revolve around a character named Rita. And these 3 stories, one is set in high school, one is like 3 years later, and one is, like when she's probably in her late 30s, early 40s. 3 micros. Stuck. The high school guidance counselor tells Rita she's good with words and could go far if only she decided to apply herself. Maybe something in data entry over at the Ford plant. Apply herself. what people always say, like Rita's the sticky side of a bumper sticker, or one of the stars her mother's long ago boyfriend pasted over their bed in the shape of the Big Dipper. For months, the stars came alive in the dark, all spark and pulse. Her mother scrambled eggs for breakfast and whistled when she recycled the empty cans. After the boyfriend chased a blonde waitress all the way to Juneau, the stars gave up and fell. Her mother unstuck. There was no other word for it. Outlet. Rita's got one eye on her toddler and the other on her order screen when her landlord calls with his usual morning after bitch fest about late night parties and neighbor complaints. She tucks her phone under her chin and repeats the order back to the red Corolla. 2 breakfast sandwiches, hold the bacon, coffee black with extra cream. Makes a face at Agnes, her boss, when she gets to coffee black with extra cream. A pet peeve of Rita's, because coffee with cream isn't black anymore, but whatever. Agnes likes to say the customer is right, usually. She's okay for a boss. Fun even, is semi-okay with Rita bringing her kid to work now and then. Like today, when he sneezed twice at drop-off, and Claire, the prissy daycare lady, said absolutely not, but whatever. Rita punches in another breakfast order, nothing vegan, sorry, and hands the baby a spatula to play with, silver and shiny, but not so sharp as the knife he was eyeing. No smoking, I know, she says to the landlord, watches her kid totter off in the direction of the big fridge. It's a fact that only Kevin lit up, and he stepped out on the balcony to do it, but whatever. And the party wasn't her fault, and wasn't even much of a party, just a couple of people from work letting off steam, and they didn't drink very much or stay out late, not much past 10. That's when the baby woke up, wet and crying, and Rita made sure to tell her guests to be extra quiet on the stairs when they left, because of the old bitch who lived in number 1. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? She says to the man wearing Elvis Costello glasses, blue Chevy, who looks pissed off at having to roll his window back down and shout his order all over again. And I know, she says to her landlord, louder now, because the baby is banging the spatula against wherever the hell he's disappeared to. And she looks around for Agnes to please have a look-see, but she's busy bussing a couple of tables and taking her time with it. And it's raining harder now. And Elvis Costello is brandishing a 20 at her. The landlord is saying eviction when there's a whoosh and a pop and the smell of burned skin, and Rita figures out too late where the baby's crawled off to. Baggage. Cassie, her therapist, says it's important for Rita to let go of the baggage she's carried around for so long. So this is why they've assembled here at the foot of a hill an hour before sunup, before the honk and grind of the day has kicked in and scuffed its early shine. Cassie says it's best to climb a mountain, but there aren't any within 300 miles, so a hill will have to do. Cassie hands her a trash bag that's technically empty, but symbolically full of the stuff Rita's been shoving into it for years. All the won'ts, shouldn'ts, can'ts, couldn'ts, and a bunch of you'll nevers, all of it into the sack that she ties up at the top, starving the bad thoughts of oxygen until they die. Bad, 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 they shout as they climb the hill. The glass is slick and wet, so Rita must step carefully around a strew of used condoms and piles of dried dog shit. And when she finally reaches the top, they let out a long together, letting out the last of the bad. The sun is a chip on the horizon, a fluff of orange fur. When she tosses her trash in the dumpster at the top of the hill, Rita feels lighter, like she's climbed a mountain, like the air up here is thin and rare. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Sarah Freligh. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And we'll look for your new book, which is Other Emergencies, right? Congratulations on that. And if everybody would, all of the readers, feel free to put your Twitter X handles, if anybody's still there, or Blue Sky, or wherever people can reach you. Put that in the chat, or any links to anything you want. Don't forget to do that. Okay. Our final leader for tonight is David James Poissant, Jamie Poissant. He is the author of the novel Lake Life, a New York Times Editor's Choice selection, and The Heaven of Animals, stories a finalist for the LA Times Book Prize and the Penn Bingham Prize. His stories have appeared in The Atlantic, One Story, Plowshares, and the Southern Review, Best Small Fictions, and elsewhere. He is the editor of the Florida Review. Jamie Poissant.
Thanks, Francine. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for being here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I see a lot of friendly faces. I'm going to read one story tonight. It's a story called Eddie, and this first appeared in Ghost Parachute, where I know I've seen a lot of your names. I think anyone who loves Flash loves Ghost Parachute. They're local. They're in Orlando. I'm in Orlando. So I always love when they give a story a home and they pair it with beautiful artwork. So this is Eddie from Ghost Parachute. Eddie is going to be a lapidary, so he says. But Eddie is going to be a lot of things. I ask Eddie what a lapidary is, and Eddie says a lapidary is someone who cuts gemstones, polishes and cuts, sometimes engraves. On Reddit, Eddie says, lapidaries advertise their cuts. He says there's this school in Utah, or maybe Nevada, where they turn rough stones into diamond rings. All Eddie needs is $5,000 for a faceting machine and $3,000 to take the class, $2,000 for flight and hotel, but no more than 10 grand tops. This machine is the best, Eddie says. We sit in rocking chairs. We sit on my front porch, not drinking, and Eddie shows me pictures from a catalog. Eddie is my best friend, has been since we were 5, and now we're 35. For 5 years, I've taught history, college level, on the tenure track. Next year, I go up for tenure. Next month, Eddie flies to Utah or Nevada if his parents lend him the $10,000. Before he was going to be a lapidary, Eddie was going to be a dog groomer. He was fired after his scissors took off a miniature pinscher's ear. Eddie superglued the ear back on, but backward. The dog owner, leaving Petco, noticed before she'd even left the lot. Before he was going to be a dog groomer, Eddie was going to be a snail farmer. Only the snails he had shipped from France turned out to be illegal in Florida, so Eddie ate the evidence. Before snail farming, Eddie took up falconry. The falconry phase did not end well. Before falconry, Eddie was a cater waiter. He stole booze, huffed glue, hid from his manager in bathroom stalls, and one time had sex with the groom. Around the time he got let go from cater waitering, Eddie asked me if I thought he had a drinking problem. I told Eddie he very much had a drinking problem, and Eddie called me a bad friend and told me to go screw myself because when Eddie is drunk, he says things he doesn't mean, or means but doesn't mean to say. But Eddie's been saying things he doesn't mean since we were 5. So when he called me a bad friend, I told Eddie to stay away for a week. And when the week was up, he knocked on my door and he said he was sober. And I said, no kidding? And he said, no kidding, but you can still drink in front of me. And I said, I will never drink in front of you again. And I haven't. Being unemployed keeps Eddie sober, Eddie says, and I believe him. This time, Eddie says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a lapidary. The rockers on the front porch creak under the weight of us, and Eddie talks about flights from Pensacola to Utah or Nevada. Direct would be nice, he says, but he'd settle for a layover in Dallas-Fort Worth. Eddie's parents might not lend the money on account of the falcon is dead and Eddie ate the snail farm, but Eddie says if he asks real nice, his aunt in Jacksonville might bankroll the whole thing. He could pay her back plus interest. Could pay her back double in a month is how lucrative the gemstone business is. Before he was a cater waiter, Eddie took up juggling, And before he took up juggling, Eddie learned a magic trick or two. Before magic, Eddie gave front yard haircuts, and before front yard haircuts, Eddie tried and failed to end his life. After Eddie failed to end his life, Eddie tried again and failed, this time for real. If I had the money, I'd lend it, I say. I'd give it to you. I know that, Eddie says. Don't you think I know that? Our rockers rock. The porch boards squeal. Sitting in my bank account right now is just over 10 grand, but Eddie knows better than to ask. Sure is a pretty faceting machine, Eddie says. He turns the page. He holds the catalog aloft so I can look. I nod, and we watch Pensacola turn to night. Frog song and cicada hiccup. A mile away, waves trace a beach too far from here to hear. Sometimes I imagine Eddie on that beach. Not just Eddie, every Eddie. Lapidary Eddie with his faceting machine, falconer Eddie with his bird of prey, snail Eddie and magic Eddie, and Eddie gluing the ears of small breed dogs back on. All those Eddies, those he's been and those he'll never be, crowding a wet and crowded Florida shore, pulling a dove from pocket, spinning a stone to catch the light, searching the horizon for what comes next. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Jamie. Oh, really stunning. Jamie Poissant. Wonderful. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Okay, well, I know I'm sort of speechless after all these wonderful readings. Just amazing. Really wonderful, wonderful stuff, everybody. And I want to thank everybody for being here in the Zoom room. Our readers, once again, Kathryn Kulpa, Pedro Ponce, Jenniefer Maloney, David Gregory, Nora Nadjarian, Mario Aliberto, III, Sarah Freligh, Jamie Poissant. And thank you all here. I'm going to just turn off the recording and we can hang out in the Zoom room for a few minutes if you want. So we'll be here next month with the FBOMB. And thank you again for being here, and drive safely. Good night.